And out front now, Sean Spicer, the chief strategist and communications director for the Republican National Committee. Sean, you just heard Ted Cruz saying Trump doesn't have the judgment to be president. Is he right?
That's not up to me to decide. That's up to our voters. Each of these gentlemen is going to make, and women are going to make the case to the voters in these states, and they'll decide whether the issue, the visions, the judgment, the temperament is what they're looking for in a candidate. And at the end, we'll have a nominee.
And you'll have a nominee however you get there. It might be pretty difficult. I mean, according to the Washington Post, I want to quote them on this very issue. They say several longtime Republican power brokers argued that if the controversial billionaire, Donald Trump, storms through the primaries, the party's establishment must lay the groundwork for a floor fight in which the GOP's mainstream wing could coalesce around an alternative. When we talk about a floor fight, we're talking about a convention. You don't have a nominee by the convention, and you have a brokered convention, a giant fight on the floor. That would be an incredible moment in American history. Is that a plan you support if Donald Trump does storm through the primaries?
Okay, well, there's three things there. Number one, you need 1,236 delegates to win our nomination. If Donald Trump or any other candidate has those delegates, they'll be our nominee. That's it, plain and simple. Second, if a candidate doesn't have that number of delegates, there'll be a contested convention, and the delegates that the voters have selected will decide it. But that's how the process works. It's the delegates that are selected by the voters that will decide this. No one in Washington, no one at the RNC. This is a decision that voters make. But last, if I can just dial back some of this intrigue that occurred, that the Washington Post reported on, you're alluding to. There was a dinner that occurred this week that is a regular dinner of political type people that get together, that talk about politics and legislation, topics of the day. And halfway through a 2-hour dinner, the discussion turned to, let's talk about the rules of the nomination process. What's changed this cycle? What's the difference between a hybrid state and a proportional state? All sorts of inside baseball discussion about how the process works, the rules of the committee, and that's basically what this was, a dinner conversation.
Sean, a new poll shows 54% of Republicans support Donald Trump's proposed temporary ban on Muslims entering America. Do you respect your voters, your GOP voters' wishes, their support on this issue?
What I support is the fact that I think there are a lot of people in this country that have grown increasingly scared about their security. The number one job of any commander-in-chief is to protect this country. And I think Americans are fearful. You look at the threat that's posed overseas with ISIS, and now the threat that we're seeing in San Bernardino last week between France and that. I think rightly so. Americans are scared, and they need leaders that are going to put America's security first and foremost. So I think in lieu of a plan, that's what you're really seeing in these polls, is people are scared of what's going on, and they want to know that the next president of the United States is doing that. And
but specifically, they do, 54% of them support, right? But of course, the chairman of the RNC, Ryan Priebus, you work with him, condemned Trump's comments. He said, quote, I don't agree. We need to aggressively take on radical Islamic terrorism, but not at the expense of our American values. So he came out against what Donald Trump had to say. But it doesn't sound like you are. I mean, you respect, because 54% of your Republican voters now support it.
No. What I'm saying is the chairman understands the context that those comments were made in, which is trying to protect America. He doesn't agree that constitutionally we can ban a particular religion from entering this country. But I think the bigger point in all of this is under the current administration, there is a lack of feeling that there is a plan to protect this country. And the chairman was saying, simply put, I don't necessarily agree with Donald Trump's particular proposal, but he understands the context that right now Americans are craving someone to come forward and lead our country with a plan to make it secure. That's not occurring. So while we can disagree on particular plans and tactics, I think all of the Republicans that will take the stage on Tuesday agree that the current plans laid out by this administration are not sufficient to protect America, and we need a commander-in-chief that puts America's security first and foremost.
Sean, Donald Trump has felt that he has not been treated fairly in many ways by the Republican establishment. He says that if he keeps feeling that way, he would leave the GOP, run as an independent, if he doesn't get the respect he feels he deserves from party leaders like yourself. Do you care if he decides to leave? If one day he said, I'm just going to leave, would you care? Knowing, of course, that most likely it would cost the Republicans the election.
Of course I'd care, because of exactly what you just said. Every single Republican, and first of all, I listened very extensively to what he said to your colleague Don Lemon, and he was very clear that he has no intention to leave, that he's going to run as a Republican, he intends to win, and that unless he's treated unfairly. He's being completely treated fairly, as if all the candidates are. I fully expect him to continue to run as a Republican. He is a very, very smart man, as are all candidates, and understand, as all of them do, that if we are not united as a party, we are basically handing Hillary Clinton the keys to the White House, and that is one thing that every single Republican understands is paramount to why we're running. So there is no question in my mind that Donald Trump will remain a Republican because we will treat him fairly, as we will all the candidates. We will be united as a party, and we will take back the White House this November.
Sean Spicer, thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Have a great weekend.